Hi everybody, this is Hana with Team Elite, where we inspire you to dream big and go bold. Today we are here with our Think and Grow Rich series. We're doing our live interactive audiobook with me and Mr. Vahid Chitsas. Thank you so much for being here today.
You got it. Good to see you, Hana, again.
Awesome.
Very excited that we're doing the entire book.
Oh yeah. So right now, guys, we are on a 50-cent lesson in persistence. This is page 8 on my book, so check your edition, but it's a 50-cent lesson in persistence. I'm going to be reading, and Vahid is going to be doing commentary throughout the book, so he can really give you the juice of what it is that I'm reading. So let's get into this, guys. A 50-cent lesson in persistence. Shortly after Mr. Darby received his degree from the University of Hard Knocks, and he decided to profit by his experience in the gold mining business, he had the good fortune to be present on an occasion that proved to him that no does not necessarily mean no. One afternoon, he was helping his uncle grind wheat in an old-fashioned mill. The uncle operated a large farm on which a number of colored sharecrop farmers lived. Quietly, the door was open, and a small colored child, the daughter of the tenant, walked in and took her place near the door. The uncle looked up, saw the child, and barked at her roughly, "What do you want?" Meekly, the child replied, "My mama says, send her 50 cents. "I'll not do it," the uncle retorted. "Now you run on home." "Yes, sir," the child replied, but she...
So the uncle said no to her.
Yep.
So the uncle clearly said no, right? And if you kind of can imagine in your mind, we're talking about a big guy working a mill back in the day. So this is not a little guy, right?
Yeah,
this is full size, muscle and everything else. Probably 6 foot tall. So he's doing that. And this is a little girl saying that my mama needs 50 cents.
"Yes, sir," she replied, but she did not move. The uncle went ahead with his work, so busily engaged that he did not pay enough attention to the child to observe that she did not leave. When he looked up and saw her still standing there, he yelled at her, "I told you to go home. Now go, or I'll take a switch to you." The little girl said, "Yes, sir."
Switch to you means I'm going to start beating you up. I'm going to start hurting you.
The little girl said, "Yes, sir." But she did not budge an inch. The uncle dropped a sack of grain he was about to pour into the mill hopper, picked up a barrel stave, and started toward the child with an expression on his face that indicated trouble. Darby held his breath. He was certain he was about to witness a murder. He knew his uncle had a fierce temper. He knew that colored children were not supposed to defy white people in that part of the country. When the uncle reached the spot where the child was standing,
we're talking about this guy coming at this little girl with this stick in his hand. So he's watching and he thinks that something is about to go wrong here. A big guy, little girl, not a good situation, especially that he's got a very, very bad temper. So this is, imagine yourself being there. I would be scared.
Definitely. When the uncle reached the spot where the child was standing, she quickly stepped forward one step, looked up into his eyes, and screamed at the top of her shrill voice, "My mama's gotta have that 50 cents. The uncle stopped, looked at her for a minute, then slowly
So she didn't retreat. She didn't go back. She actually stepped up and looked directly. We're talking about eye contact. So this kid is definitely determined. She definitely wants it. She's made up her mind. She cannot go home without having the 50 cents.
The uncle stopped, looked at her for a minute, then slowly laid the barrel stave on the floor, put his hand in his pocket, took out a $50 and gave it to her. The child took the money and slowly backed toward the door, never taking her eyes off the man whom she still had just conquered. After she had gone, the uncle sat down on a box and looked out the window into space for more than 10 minutes. He was pondering with awe over the whipping he had just taken.
So this little kid, determined, didn't retreat, stepped forward, eye contact, wanted something, got it, and guess what happened? She conquered a full-grown man. So now he's pondering, what did just happen? How did this happen? That's just you mentally, physically being there and not deviating from what you want to get. She made that decision. All 13 principles of Napoleon Hill's success principles are in that one story. It's like less than a half a page. Two pages, something very small, right? All the principles, if you the telltale signs are there. She knew exactly what she needs, 50 cents, so it was exact. It wasn't between 20 cents to 50 cents. It was exactly 50 cents. My mama needs to have it now. meaning not I'll come back for it tomorrow. So she had a goal and it had a deadline.
Yes.
That deadline was now. I'm standing here to get it, right? So all the 13 principles are definitely in that story where, you gotta sometimes be there to observe that. But that's what happens when you want something. You're gonna plant your flag and you're gonna just go after it, and nothing, or you're not gonna get scared of nothing, because your goals and dreams and vision is much stronger and bigger than your fears.
Mr. Darby, too, was doing some thinking. That was the first time in all his experience that he had seen a colored child deliberately master an adult white person. How did she do it? What happened to his uncle that caused him to lose his fierceness and become a docile lamb? What strange power did this child use that made her master over her superior? These and other simple questions flashed into Darby's mind, but he did not find the answer until years later when he told me the story. Strangely, the story of this unusual experience was told to the author in the old mill, on the very spot where the uncle took his whipping. Strangely, too, I had devoted nearly a quarter of a century to the study of the power which enabled an ignorant, intolerant, colored child to conquer an intelligent man. As we stood there in this musty old mill, Mr. Darby repeated the story of the unusual conquest and finished by asking, "What can you make of it? What strange power did that child use that so completely whipped my uncle?"
So everybody should be asking the same question of themselves. Don't wait for the author to give you the answer. What do you think of it? What power did she possess that did do happen? Why was he not going through with taking a switch at her, beating her up, throwing out, close the door on her, whatever the case might be, right? Or grab her hand and take her to the mother and say, "Why'd you send your daughter over here?" Or "Don't send her again." What happened? So we all need to think about this, and that's where the creative mind starts coming out, where you need to be thinking, what do I get out of this? What does it mean to me?
Yes. The answer to his question will be found in the principles described in this book. The answer is full and complete. It contains details and instructions sufficient to enable anyone to understand and apply the same force which the little child accidentally stumbled upon. Keep your mind alert, and you will observe exactly what strange power came to the rescue of the child. You will catch a glimpse of this power in the next chapter. Somewhere in the book you will find an idea that will quicken your receptive powers and place at your command, for your own benefit, this same irresistible power. The awareness of this power may come to you in the first chapter, or it may flash into your mind in some subsequent chapter. It may come in the form of a single idea, or it may come in the nature of a plan or a purpose. Again, it may cause you to go back into your past experiences of failure or defeat and bring to the surface some lesson by which you can regain all that you lost through defeat.
So when the point Hill is talking about is that every step of our lives, we might come across temporary defeats, perhaps some failures. But if you go back and rethink about what happened there, you'll be able to gain some experience from those failures. It's not failure. Right now it might be called failure, but down the line in life, it's called experience. So you got to go back, revisit, what could I have done differently to be able to accomplish my goal?
After I had described to Mr. Darby the power unwittingly used by the little colored child, he quickly retraced his 30 years of experience as a life insurance salesman and frankly acknowledged that his success in that field was due, in no small degree, to the lesson he had learned from the child. Mr. Darby pointed out, "Every time a prospect tried to bow me out without buying, I saw that child standing there in the old mill, her big eyes glaring in defiance, and I said to myself, I've got to make this sale. The better portion of all sales I've made were made after people said no." He recalled, too, his mistake in having stopped only 3 feet from gold. But, he said, that experience was a blessing in disguise. It taught me to keep on keeping on, no matter how hard the going may be, a lesson I needed to learn before I could succeed in anything.
That translate, if you want to translate that, Hana, in our business, or if you're an entrepreneur or business owner, that translates into follow-up. Being follow-up intensive, meaning you don't give up on the prospects, or you're going to repeat, you're going to talk to the same person many, many times over till you accomplish what you want to accomplish.
Yes. This story of Mr. Darby and his uncle, the colored child, and the gold mine doubtless will be read by hundreds of men who make their living by selling life insurance, and to all of these, the author wishes to offer the suggestion that Darby owes to these two experiences his ability to sell more than $1 million of life insurance every year. Life is strange and often imponderable. Both the successes and the failures have their roots in simple experiences. Mr. Darby's experiences were commonplace and simple enough, yet they held the answer to his destiny in life. Therefore, they were as important to him as life itself.
Mm-hmm.
He profited by these two dramatic experiences because he analyzed them and found the lesson they taught. But what of the man who was neither the time nor the inclination to study failure in search of knowledge that may lead to success? Where and how is he to learn the art of converting defeat into stepping stones to opportunity?
So converting your failures, temporary defeat, into stepstone for success. Mm-hmm. So the two stories, 3 feet from gold and the 50-cent story, those two things Darby experienced it firsthand himself. So he went back and actually meditated on that, studied on that, rethink about it. What could you, and those things really shook him, and he became obviously a good, he was in financial services. Specifically, the story talks about him selling life insurance, but it doesn't have to be life insurance. It doesn't have to be a specific product or specific industry. It could be in anything that you want to do. It might be in some type of invention. It could be that you're trying to open a restaurant with a specific menu. You want to cater to specific clients. It could be a dry cleaner. It could be a hair salon. It could be whatever. It could be an auto repair business, right? It doesn't matter what industry you go into, but as long as you follow up and you stick to that, and you don't get discouraged by people saying no, you will make it big.
Mm-hmm. In answer to these questions, the book was written. The answer called for a description of 13 principles, but remember, as you read, the answer you may be seeking to the questions which have caused you to ponder over the strangeness of life may be found in your own mind, through some idea, plan, or purpose which may spring into your mind as you read. One sound idea is all that one needs to achieve a success. The principles.
One sound idea is all you need to reach success.
The principles described in this book contain the best and the most practical of all that is known concerning ways and means of creating useful ideas. Before we go any further in our approach to the description of these principles, we believe you are entitled to receive this important suggestion. When riches begin to come, they come so quickly, in such great abundance, that one wonders where they have been hiding during all of those lean years. This is an astounding statement, and all the more so when we take into consideration the popular belief that riches come only to those who work hard and long.
So what is he trying to say? See, you're trying to build up your business, and all of a sudden you have built up, it's like this floodgate of water, but you build a dam. So what ends up happening is that the money comes to you, and you're wondering, what happened to all those dry out seasons? Mm-hmm. Well, here's what happened. During those times, you were building up the momentum to get there. You were building up your strategy. You were perfecting your way of doing business. Or you will not have been able to handle the money if it comes to you like that. Mm-hmm. So it's very, very important that a lot of people, it takes 20 years to become an overnight success. So it might take a little bit of a time, but it will come. But when it does come, everybody's shocked. They're like, where was this money? Why is it coming? And Bob Proctor talks about that in a couple of his videos, and he says that. So it's definitely true. It's going to come to you, but you don't know. Those lean years, you keep on pushing forward. You don't stop because you don't see the result. Just like going to the gym. First 30 days, you may not see a great difference.
No.
First 90 days, you may not see a lot. But things are happening internally.
When you begin to think and grow rich, you will observe that riches begin with a state of mind, with definiteness of purpose, with little or no hard work. You and every other person ought to be interested in knowing how to acquire that state of mind which will attract riches.
That doesn't mean you sit and think positive and you just have the plan in your mind and don't do anything. That's not what he's talking about. It starts in your mind. You start thinking about it. It's thoughts, but then you got to put the action in place also too.
I spent 25 years in research, analyzing more than 25,000 people because I too wanted to know how wealthy men become that way. Without that research, this book could not have been written. Here, take notice of a very significant truth. The business depression started in 1929 and continued on to an all-time record of destruction until sometime after President Roosevelt entered office. Then the depression began to fade into nothingness. Just as an electrician in a theater raises the lights so gradually that darkness is transmuted into light before you realize it, so did the spell of fear in the minds of people that gradually fade away and become faith. Observe very closely. As soon as you master the principles of this philosophy and begin to follow the instructions for applying those principles, your financial status will begin to improve and everything you touch will begin to transmute itself into an asset for your benefit. Impossible? Not at all. One of the main weaknesses of mankind is the average man's familiarity with the word impossible. He knows all the rules which will not work. He knows all the things which cannot be done. This book was written for those who seek the rules which have been made of others successful and are willing to stake everything on those rules. A great many years ago, I purchased a fine dictionary. The first thing I did with it was to turn to the word impossible and neatly clip it out of the book.
Cut it out.
That would be an unwise thing to do.
And you got to think about it, hold on. This book came out during the Great Depression. But if you ask me, everybody who said the economy was bad, this, was there a depression? Yes, but that was a bunch of excuse. That was a bunch of excuse for a lot of people not to do a whole lot.
Yeah.
And that's what exactly happened. During the downturn that we had in 2006, 7, and 8, real estate market going down, there have been more millionaires produced from that downturn in retrospect of the economy going up. So more millionaires were actually made during that downturn because those individuals, they knew exactly what they wanted to do, when to buy, when to go into the market, what to do and what not to do. And they've been preparing for that. The ones that were not prepared, guess what? Those were the ones that got hurt. So this book came out during Great Depression. So to me, it's like a bunch of excuses. If you marketplace is fantastic, things are great. Everybody does need your services. You just may not have found the right market to provide your services to. But there's enough money, there's enough wealth in the world to go around for all of us to be rich and wealthy.
Success comes to those who become success conscious. Failure comes to those who indifferently allow themselves to become failure conscious. The object of this book is to help all those who seek it to learn the art of changing their minds from failure consciousness to success consciousness. Now, I think this is going to be a good break for us to go. There's going to be about 2 more series, guys, of the introduction. But is there anything that you want to recap on so far?
I believe that everybody needs to be reading it a couple of more times themselves. Don't go too fast on it, but definitely it's talking about conscious, success conscious, failure conscious. If you constantly think about failure or being impossible, well, whatever you think is probably naturally going to come true. So you definitely don't want to look at it as something impossible. You or I may not have had the answer or the solution to that impossible task. But if you think about it enough, go to work enough, it will happen. And that's a big testimonial to that would be anybody who's invented something. They don't usually get it right the first time. They usually have to refine it, and eventually it comes with a prototype where it actually does work. And then you can take it to the next level. But take the word impossible out of the dictionary, cut it out, throw it out, burn it, do whatever, get rid of it, because it is possible.
Beautiful. Well, thank you guys so much. Be sure to catch us on the next. We're going to be continuing the introduction with our 4th video. Once again, this is the Think and Grow Rich series. My name is Hana. This is Vahid, and we will see you next time. Thank you so much.
You got it. Take care. Good seeing you.